Hello. Let's talk food revolution, shall we? So honey apparently comes from honey bears, and apples make avocados that make guacamole. Apparently cheese comes from macaroni, and chocolate flows in a chocolate lake. How awesome would that be? These are typical answers that were given when Jamie Oliver was doing his food revolution through the States. Typical answers in a typical school. And you might be thinking, well, that sounds typically American, which would be terrible of you to think, because I'm here to tell you that this is also a Cayman thing. Just to give you a little bit of background, I have been working in Cayman in health and wellness for about 14 years now, a variety of capacities, and through this I found my real passion working with kids. I'm not a trained professional with kids, but I love food, and what I ended up doing is honing in on working with kids and teaching them how to cook well and cook with wholesome ingredients. And what I find, not only do I get an immense pleasure out of it, I see that kids are so connected when they actually get involved in the process of food. And when they pick and choose and decide that they're going to engage in a wholesome thing, it's a pretty remarkable thing to see. As a matter of fact, it lights me up and it inspires me to think that I can make a change. You see, 33% of our children here in Cayman are either overweight or obese as they enter school. 1/5 of our nation's budget goes toward supporting healthcare costs, and that's towards non-communicable diseases and chronic disease management, and that's not including any sort of private health insurance numbers. You see, we as a society, have lost complete touch with where our food comes from. Did you know that here in Cayman, when they are in season, our tomatoes are possibly some of the best tomatoes that you are ever going to try? Good. Did you know that we actually have different kinds of herbs here, microgreens, root vegetables, and fruits that actually fire your taste buds up because they are fresh and they are literally in our backyard? Yet, this is not on our radar. And I find it very interesting because we have some of the best things growing right here, and yet we don't engage with this process. You see, to me, knowing where your food comes from and how it's made is absolutely essential to our vitality. And I think when we think about what this means when it comes to how it affects our children, you don't need to have children around you all the time. We have to appreciate that we are always going to be watched. We're watched all the time. We are leaders by example, even when we don't know it. And when we make detrimental decisions about going and getting a genetically modified or processed food instead of a real one, it's starting to have a real detrimental effect on our youth today. Things like trans fats and fructose are in our foods everywhere. These are technically neurotoxins. And yes, it sounds scary because it is. These things kill brain cells, and our kids consume this. I'm not worried about us because we're adults and we can make these kind of decisions, you see. But when it actually starts trickling down on kids and when they don't have a choice in it, that's when I start shaking my head a little bit. And when you look at the correlation between poor nutrition and children in schools, it actually has a detrimental effect when it comes to how they learn, how they perform, maybe even their attitude, their behavior. So when you look at a child that's overweight in school, I'm sure there's a lot of different reasons for it. But we're looking at a child that's actually struggling a little bit. We're looking at a child that's probably dealing with some issues when it comes to being socially accepted, possibly bullied. And they're going to start becoming dependent into the medical system way earlier than they need to. Children with poor nutrition simply fail to thrive as human beings. That, to me, is a very sad thing, because what we are doing is we are raising sad, ill-educated, and unhealthy children. You see, to me, food is love, because I love food, and it loves me. Yes. But food really is love. And to me, food is also, like music, like we heard earlier, is one of the things that really unites the world. It's universal. It's heartfelt. It's fantastic. And what saddens me is when children don't actually see that they're going to ever be able to connect with that. It's a very sad thing, again, for me to see that sometimes when I work with some of these kids, this is their first time, and they're not that young. I work from 4 to 12-year-olds mostly. So when I'm looking at the 10 to 12-year-old age and they've never, ever engaged in cooking or being part of that process in the kitchen, it's a remarkable thing to me because I grew up in that. To me, education is the key, and I know we hear that all the time, but I'm talking about self-education now because we have so much available to us when it comes to information. I mean, we all have smartphones, we've all got computers, we've got everything. If you actually punch in healthy meals on a budget, you're going to get over 5 million hits. So what would it take if we actually took any of those hits and took any recipe and decided to engage in it? And for those of us who have families or don't have families or go home to anything, in order for us to see that we've lost that connection when it comes to being family-oriented and the things that actually help us not be stressed anymore, cooking at home is one of the most beautiful things that you can do, especially when you can engage in your family. The thing is we don't try anymore. And that's a strong word that I'm going to keep saying today, because we have all the tools in front of us. All we have to do is try. You see, for me, I grew up in a single-parent home. My mom worked incredibly hard at a time where she had to fight for the roof that we had over our heads, and we didn't have a lot of money. But what she did do is put our nutrition as a priority. And she put that as a priority because she knew that it was going to help us be the best that we could be, and we would learn things in the process. And the other thing that we also knew is that we could start getting involved in the process. Part of me feels like she probably did that so we wouldn't be goofing off somewhere, but a lot of it was probably to engage us in the process of what she did just naturally, because this was a generational thing for her. They always gathered in the kitchen. See, my mom worked a lot of night shifts, so for me, I'd get up in the morning and I'd know I'd have a hot meal, and I also would go to sleep knowing that I'd have a hot meal. She'd set us up for success in the morning and make sure that we were full when we went to bed. I promise you we didn't have a lot of money. And we didn't get to see her a lot, but we never saw that, and we never wanted for anything. Now, did we have treats? Absolutely we did. We had Fruit Loops, we had snack packs, we had all those things. However, these were treats. And the concept of treats to me have become so mainstream that this is now a staple of our diet. Not sure where that went wrong. I guess it was in and amongst everything else in our instant gratification world that we have today. But we had treats, and that was okay. You see, my mom's philosophy was very, very simple. For my mom, it was, sorry, I got a sore throat there. For my mom, it was, she's either going to spend the money now, which we didn't have a lot of, and pay the grocer, or she was going to go and pay our doctor's bills later. To me, those were wonderful worlds to live by, wonderful. So for me, cooking became a life skill. And I think for everyone in this room, I hope cooking is a skill for you. And if it isn't, it should be an essential skill. Because in order for you to be a self-sustaining human being, you really should be able to put one meal together. I'm not talking about a grilled cheese sandwich here. I'm talking about a meal, right? And when we look around at all the education that is around us, I find it very interesting, too, that a lot of folks that I've had the experience with and parents thinking that it's someone else's job. They do a lot of this. It's the government, it's the schools, it's the parents. As a community, folks, this is our jobs because we all have to band together. This is no longer a choice. This is now something we have to do as a cause. So you see, I really like my treats, but I like quinoa too. And I know you like quinoa because you had to have it outside. I know how to spell it. And I also think kale is really cool. See, when we stop caring, that's where we start seeing that discord. And I think food is one of these things that we need to learn to start caring and loving together again. To me, one of the most startling things that I heard was that this generation could be the first generation in history that may live 5 years less than their parents because of the choices that we make for them. And when I say we, I am talking collectively. We don't need a lot of money to make this happen. I think one of the biggest things is people think that we need funding, and we do. Of course we need funding. But there are so many hard organizations that are working round the clock. The awareness that we need to make, and speaking to a lot of you folks today out there was great because I learned a lot. We're all doing all these kind of things. We're all interested in all of these wonderful things. All we need to do is start connecting about it and making a difference. You see, when we stop caring, we start thinking like nothing. We disconnect with what makes us human, and we forget what our roles and responsibilities are. Our role and we need to be martyrs. We need to be heroes. Those are big words, but we need to be those people that actually make that difference in people's lives. So for me, I'm here to tell you that it is time for that Cayman food revolution. It is time for us to engage all of the different things around us. It is time for us to start being mindful about the choices that we are making when it comes to food. It is time for us to look at the influences that we have in children's lives. Because I don't believe it when someone says to me that children won't eat their vegetables. They will. I see it. I live it. They may not like it, but they will learn that they'll have the choice to decide what they like and what they don't. So I'd like you to stand with me when I'm going to tell people that kale is really cool, and that salad can be pretty super, and that honey actually comes from honeybees. I really would like to work hard on giving those 5 years back that for no reason are going to be lost simply because of the choices that we make for our future generation. Thank you.